In the respiration video, we reviewed the process of gas exchange, specifically highlighting what occurs during external and internal respiration. Although we know gas exchange occurs here because of simple diffusion, we'll need to highlight the specific mechanisms by which oxygen and carbon dioxide complete this process. Let's begin first by describing hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a protein molecule that serves as the transport mechanism for both oxygen and carbon dioxide in the body. More specifically, hemoglobin is noted by what we refer to as heme groups. As you look at this molecule, notice the 4 small red structures in the middle of each subunit. These represent what we refer to as heme groups. And just in case you're wondering, heme is another way to describe iron. It is to these heme groups that oxygen attaches. So in essence, what we're saying is that iron is responsible for carrying oxygen in the body. Next, let's turn our attention to the 4 larger structures that we see, which are known as Globin chains. These Globin chains, noted by the green, yellow, and blue highlighted areas, allow for the transportation of carbon dioxide. So as we look at this image, if you'll imagine this structure contained within a red blood cell, it will make sense as to how both of these molecules travel throughout the body. Just as we examined a moment ago, we have our molecule of hemoglobin. We now know that oxygen attaches to the heme group. This also represents 100% of the way in which oxygen is transported throughout the body. In other words, this is it. There's no other way for oxygen to be transported. And we call the joining of oxygen and hemoglobin oxyhemoglobin. Now, carbon dioxide is different in how it is transported throughout the body. This process occurs in 3 unique ways. The first way that we'll examine here is through the use of a dissolved form of carbon dioxide. Starting with what we know, carbon dioxide is attached to the Globin chains of hemoglobin. During the exchange between oxygen and carbon dioxide that we reviewed during respiration, some of the carbon dioxide diffuses or dissolves into plasma. Remember that plasma is the liquid portion of blood. So what we'll see next is CO2 making its way into plasma. This represents roughly 10% of how CO2 is transported throughout the body. "70% of how carbon dioxide travels through the body is manufactured as bicarbonate. During gas exchange, carbon dioxide enters the plasma, and as it enters the plasma, it is exposed to water. An enzyme known as carbonic anhydrase joins water and carbon dioxide together to form carbonic acid. Carbonic acid is then broken down into 2 separate components: bicarbonate, seen here in its chemical form as HCO3, and hydrogen. The third mechanism we'll review here describes how approximately 20% of carbon dioxide travels in the body. And if you'll recall the earlier portion of this video, we've alluded to this process. Carbon dioxide's attachment on a hemoglobin molecule is to the Globin chains. When this process occurs, we refer to it as carbaminohemoglobin, or the combination of carbon dioxide and hemoglobin together.